So this is pretty much the end, or will be the end of the first stretch of phase two. We had, what was it, a good 3 weeks of gameplay here, and we will be giving our takes here. Mine, since it did start on the holiday, it was of good value here. But I think it was kind of tough in the beginning due to having that limited staff on site. Didn't it get it got delayed a little bit, didn't it?
7 hours.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
I think that was it was a double edged sword there, just because they I think for me at least I was kind of hyped being able to play it all day, and I sat there just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just took a nap and woke up and suddenly it was online. Um, and I think I was like 45 minutes late to actually when it started working. Which I'm gonna be honest, it crashing then and not working then is probably the best thing that could happen because you want that out of the way. You want them to realize you want those problems to happen during alpha and beta. You don't want that to happen during launch.
True.
And the thing is, it probably still will happen during launch because there's going to be way more players than the alpha, right? Because it's you only pay a subscription fee. There's no box cost, so there's going to be a ton of people getting in on when the game launches. So it was a good thing that it did have that hiccup because even if we do have something similar, they're going to be able to recognize, oh, okay, it's probably this, and fix it because they're already familiar with the system and the code. So
I just thought it was kind of lame that even though they had the issue with everyone logging in, that they did, even though they said, hey, we're not going to wipe again, the first thing they did was wipe everybody's progress who did get to
yeah,
play
but it
that
wasn't
time.
that long that they've been
Yeah, I
playing.
know, but it's like, come on now. Like,
How long were you in for before they wiped it?
I was able to get my blue little medallion, and I was able to make
Okay.
it down the
You walk
steps.
down the street. That's
Hey,
not that's
hey.
not far.
But still, there were some people who were in way, way longer than I was, and they were able to
Yeah.
get a little bit, so they were able to get a little bit further, which I do understand where they were coming from, where they kind of wanted everyone to be in the same spot, or because like if only like 10, 12 people per server were able to get in the game, then that's not really fair. You know what I'm
Well, it
saying?
wasn't just fair either. Like the reason they made it a one server thing was they wanted to actually stress test. They wanted to flood the starting zone. They wanted to find out if their server workers were being overloaded or if their meshing was going to be working. And I don't think their dynamic meshing is together. They kind of have a pseudo meshing here because they got the server workers, but they're not. They're not like they're based on the node you're in or a small area of the node you're in. It's not like it just blocks out the next, certain number of people based on how many people are in the zone. So they got work to do. And that was one concern that I had because they had said that they were going to have dynamic server meshing for the beginning of phase 1 of Alpha 2. We're at phase 2 and it's not done yet.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, because they said, and I remember in one of, what was it, one of the end of the month showcases, they displayed the server meshes or the dynamic server where they were like, oh, they're on that server, we're on this server, and the spells go across, and it's seamless. Because I remember it came out right around the time Star Citizen was talking about theirs, and they did say it was going to be ready for phase one. And I know when we got in phase one, it was, I was hearing that we were on the like traditional servers, and that's why everything was as kind of laggy and wasn't performing as well. And then that they were going to push it back to phase two. We get to phase two and it's still, not implemented, and that it's going to be later in phase two that it'll be added in, which I will say the servers and the performance of the game has gotten better in between the iterations. I
Yeah.
know from the beginning of phase 2 and now, things are a lot better. Even just like the overall quality of the game. Like I know before I had to reduce the quality of my streams down just to even play the game, just because it was just you get into a zone and everything. Like the computer, like the whole game is stressing out. My computer's like, I'm dying. And then
I had a
now,
few I had a few streams that were I thought I was like, "Oh wow, these are running great." And then I realized I was black screening the entire stream and I posted it and I was like, well, I didn't post it because it went live automatically. And I looked at
yeah,
it and I was like, "Oh my God, no wonder I was running so smoothly. I was black screen the entire time. I wasn't even recording."
yeah.
But that's streamer error. That's not it's not their error, not their issue.
Well, I know that repairing the client, like the Intrepid client, that did help with playing the game. Like my FPS was better. I know everything performed it. Like I didn't like I had there were no like weird like texture issues for other characters. Like it just cleared up a lot.
Yeah.
And I know like my friends list was cooked, but that I think that repairing the client helped out a little bit. But I think some of the lag comes from maybe the limited the limited zones we had for grinding.
Yeah, for
There,
sure.
there's like when you're going from 1 to 6, if you're focused on doing the quests and you don't know where to go and grind, or you don't have a group and you're solo, the goblins are horrible. Like you could go into the up to the skeletons and be there for a minute, but you're still gonna be there grinding for a while. Um, they did nerf the AFK
Yeah, which is a
experience.
hot take on their part, I think, personally.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit because we had Intrepid basically, they had this zone called Titan's Ring. And those of you who've played Ashes so far know all about Titan's Ring. Titan's Ring is a big deal. Is an event that basically has this um Stonehenge-ish kind of architecture, and it's got pools of water around it, and that is valid. That's important that there's pools of water because you can fish in those pools of water, and
yep,
fishing is a purely AFK uh, gathering thing. Like I mean, you can't walk and fish, so you actually have to just sit and AFK. There's no buttons to press or anything. And I know it's a placeholder system, but right now it's AFK, right? They put water in a zone where you can AFK and wait for the event to come up, grind your fishing level, and basically baited people into AFKing there because why wouldn't you just get free XP while you're fishing? Like no reason to fish anywhere else. You don't get different loot tables for fish. It's the only place to fish. So no wonder there was a bunch of AFK people there. And Steven and the team were like, "Well, you shouldn't be AFKing. This is cheating." No, it's not cheating. You put a fishing spot there. There's no like it would be just stupid to fish anywhere else. So why not get the free XP while you're there? So um they basically nerfed it. They first nerfed it once in Alpha 1 where they brought the XP that it got. I think it was like 12k XP every 15 minutes down to 11k, which slap on the wrist like
yeah.
whatever,
That was really
it's
nothing.
still free XP for something you're already going to AFK doing. So that didn't change anything. Obviously, people were still AFKing. But in phase 2, basically, the minute people hit a level where they could go do it, there was 80 or more people. I think it was at least 80 people just AFKing in Titan's Ring, which was making it lag so bad that you couldn't actually complete the event if you were avidly doing it. Right?
Yeah,
Which, again, isn't cheating. It's just the server wasn't handling it and it got labeled as cheating. I know that's according to Intrepid, that's not true. It is cheating, but AFK has always been a thing. It's not like they needed a script. It's a thing that you can just put on your bar, and the minute you press fish, it's gonna AFK. They didn't need a script for that. They're not scripting.
Yeah.
Scripting is something that they say don't do, and they weren't scripting. Or maybe there was people that were scripting, but it doesn't matter. You can still do that area AFK without scripting. So I don't know. It's a messy situation over there right now.
Yeah, it really did make sense. It feels like it was more bad. To me, it's bad design and bad programming on their end. Because if, like you said, if players aren't supposed to be AFK in this zone, I understand for the individuals who are scripting or they have some sort of like auto clicker or something that moves their mouse or character every so often so that they physically they stay online in the game. But it's like if you don't want people AFK fishing, then you need to either a add in some sort of system where like you need to either make it where we cast the rod every time we catch a fish or something. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more tedious, but at least it makes it active.
Mm-hmm.
Or because right now you fish and the fish just automatically go into your inventory. You just don't do anything. So it's like if you wanted it to be if you wanted to end that, you either change the design of fishing like to be similar to every other profession where there
Exactly.
is some sort of like cycle because it's like
Yeah.
if there were like fishing pools on the ground where the only place in the water I could fish is in like a little pool in the water, but like and I get you know a better drop there, or that's the only way I get a fish, so you know that they're biting in that spot. Kind of like how RuneScape does it, where the fish move or respawn every single time, and you have to like go to that zone to fish. Like to me, that would make more sense if you wanted to end that, but because like Ush said, there is a pool of there's like water, like there's an area around like a little circular area, right? And in that area where the EXP drops, because you don't have to contribute, you don't have to hit a single mob. You don't have to hit any mob. You can just stand in the zone. So if you're just in the zone and you're fishing, you get the loot. So if they change it to where you have to tag a mob, just one mob, doesn't matter, you just have to tag the mob, then that would end a lot of the scripting or a lot of the AFK because the people who are fishing won't get any experience and there will no longer be a reason for them to be in that area beyond fishing. And then you just there to fish and then there is no issue. And if the people are scripting, then you're going to figure out this person is scripting because you could just go to the zone and see, what is this person doing every so often? And if they're like moving or you'll be able to figure that out a lot easier because again, the people who are fishing should be able to fish, especially since the current design is like Ush said again, purely AFK. You're just chilling. But I think the people who are scripting, like having something that push W and they're running into a pillar, just sitting there like, yeah, go ahead and get that. Go ahead and kick them or get them out, or have it where if someone's doing like fishing, like if someone is fishing, allow them to be removed by AFK if they're sitting there for like 15 minutes and they're not like typing or doing something like that. But
Well, there's a 30-minute timer on AFK, but people would still like, just stay there. But the biggest problem I had with their decision of there's a problem in Titan's Ring with people AFKing
yeah,
is that pool of water there was patched. It wasn't working for fishing. It was only working half the time. And they patched it to work all the time, incentivizing people to fish and then get mad at them for AFK. Like, you
huh.
can't get mad at people for using a feature there when you should have just made it so that you needed to tag a mob. You just should just make it so they need to tag a mob. Like they say they can see where you get your XP. So it's and I'm not I did a little bit of programming, but I'm not going to call myself, "Oh, I know what their scripts look like." I don't know. Like, but just making it so if they have access to being able to tell where you get your XP from, basically have a script that checks where they get their XP from before they're awarded the event rewards. If they didn't get XP from any kills or didn't do damage to mobs, shouldn't get XP.
True.
That's simple.
Better yet, you could just have a Boolean, true or false. If are they doing a profession? Yes or no? True. Okay, well then they don't get an event from the XP. If they're in combat, then they get. They've been in combat, then they get
Oh yeah,
experience.
flag for combat. Did they go in combat during the event? If they did, check mark. If they didn't, bad. Because I mean, if you go fish by the edge, you probably won't get in combat. You're too far away from the mobs, and they did try to fix it. They shrunk the area of influence for that event zone, but it's still something you can stand and fish from.
Yeah.
So it's like they just need to do the combat flagging to figure out if you're in or out, essentially.
Yeah. Combat or just combat, and probably I would say profession, because you could easily like tag a wolf that's not, you know what I'm saying, or if something else tags you, but
Just tag a wolf from outside.
yeah, or something else. I was just saying, just because anything else could, like, if anything else generates combat, then it still would flag it. I think it would be better to see if someone is, well, probably both. If they're in a profession, if they've been using a profession like they're fishing or something like that while they are in the event, then they shouldn't get it and probably trigger a combat.
Honestly,
Maybe,
I think that if you don't get XP from a mob, then you shouldn't get XP for the event.
well,
And I know there's healers out there, but join a group. You shouldn't be healing randoms anyways. You know?
or have you there were games I played in the past that had world events like this, and they based your reward sorry. They based your reward on how much contribution you had in the event. So like if you healed, of course, then you had a different table, like depending on how much damage you did, your level. So it's like if you're in the circle and you're fishing, well, because you're not contributing to the event, which the event is to kill 20 mobs, then you shouldn't get anything. You should be like
Right.
Diablo. I think it was what was it Diablo for the world bosses? Wasn't it like, I think depending on how much contribute? Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong on this. You put it in the comments below. But depending on how much contribution you had on some of the bosses or some of the events, you got a specific reward. You know, and that's how it should be in this. All world events should be how much contribution the group. Like if you're in a group, the entire group should have their like they should have their entire, like, all their contribution weighted as the same and go from there, you know what I'm saying? Or each person kind of deal. But pretty much, long story short, or to get cut straight to it, it should be contribution based versus participation based. Because right now it's participation based, and everyone gets a participation award for just sitting in the thing, and they're mad that everyone benefits from a system that they created without having to participate. And if they wanted to change that, then they would change it to where even if you're a lower level, like if you're a lower level individual who's there, well then yeah, you might get less experience, but you should probably be either grouping or, you know, if you are able to do damage, then you might be able to get more of a reward. But it still should be, in my opinion, contribution based. I think it would be a lot easier.
I think I disagree with that a little bit, because almost all of the game, well, pretty much all of the game is contribution based, and if we're looking for a way to make sure that some people who are not very good at the game can still level up, they're having a hard time getting in parties, doing all that kind of stuff. Honestly, I think they really just should fix it that so that you need to get XP from the event to get the event XP. And I don't think it should be divided. Like, you should get the full event XP as long as you participated. But if it's contribution based, there's going to be a bunch of level 10s or 12s sitting in there grinding XP for something that's lower level than them. and making it so that no lower levels actually can use it at the appropriate level to get their, XP. And starting off from kind of the intro to phase 2, the rush, level rush and all that kind of stuff. Titan's Ring was flooded, and every other place was also flooded. We pretty much had to fight everybody for every spot on the map. And if Titan's Ring was also contribution based, it would have been much worse. If all those events were contribution based, only the best players will ever get XP. Everyone else will be waiting 3 or 4 days for those zones to be empty.
I don't think the best players would stay there in AFK, in my opinion, just because if you have to wait,
they're going to move on. But there's waves of good players. There's like the people that got in the minute the game launched, and then there's people that are like, if you have equal commitment against a group that joined 1 hour after the next person, that group that will happen consistently for a couple days. Like Titan's Ring was locked down when I was like level 18. It was still locked down. So I think, and that was several days in. Like that was 2 or 3 days in.
Yeah, but I think that is because we enabled the behavior of just sitting there and AFKing. Whereas I think
we should fix that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think because if you do the same, like I think if it was contribution based, we would get the same result as if it were like if you were in combat or not. Because like,
so when you say contribution based, what do you mean? Do you mean like you should get a percentage of the max that the reward could give you? Or because like, okay, let's put it in the example of like one person solos the entire event, which if you're level 8 and you're careful, you could do. If no one else was there interrupting you. Would you get 150% of the normal reward? Would you get 100% of the normal reward? Because if it's contribution based and you would only get a percentage for doing 100% of the work, then it would not be a good spot to do. It wouldn't be worth doing it unless you're doing it solo most of the time, unless they made the reward insane for a solo.
I would say, I think if like how I look at it is because it's going to be hard to, I don't think it should be fair to like limit. I think it should be like a default amount that everyone gets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then say
you
maybe
get bonuses on top of that.
Yeah, like so you
extra
get
contribution.
Yeah, so like if you get top DPS or top healing or something like that, I think that'd be that way. People who are try-harding, they're rewarded for trying hard. But the people who are they're in the because I think the only the amount of participation you need to make is maybe like 30%. Like I'm not saying like you need to kill every mob, but I'm saying you need to participate enough in the event. Maybe you killed a mob, you know what I'm saying, and you healed so much, you did so much deep. You have to do so like a certain amount of DPS and healing to show that you actually participated in the event versus you're sitting there and then you just get a reward. Because because that would like, and then with like if you do teams, you could, of course, you can adjust the math where if there's a team, then maybe their contribution is divided by like how many players, so it stays on par. You know what I'm saying? Because they're obviously going to do more DPS, and then like that way a solo player can compete with a team. It's just that obviously a team is going to be able to pull more higher numbers because they're working together.
You said something that kind of triggered a question, and I think it's related, but it may lead us off track a little bit. I've seen kind of the entire culture of the game seems to be very hyper fixated on punishment, not excess rewards. And the thing is, they could just word it differently and it would be a lot of rewards. Like they talk about XP debt and all of these other things is like, don't freaking die because you're going to have all these problems. But the truth is, if you don't have XP debt, you have, I believe, higher drop rates as one of the things. And why don't they sell it off of that point? As in, stay alive a long time and you get rewarded. But they just say it completely in the opposite direction, which is a big like punishment culture. And I think it's a big problem. But like you're saying with the event zone, if they made it so that there's a minimum you'll get for just being participating in an event, but you'll get rewarded for extra score, or you'll basically be scored and give you extra. That is so much better of a way to write things down. And I don't know, maybe not to every crowd, but some crowds are just like, I want to play Dark Souls, I want to be punished, I want it to be difficult all the way through. I don't want any rewards, but I think they should change their wording on it. Risk versus reward needs to be delivered, and I don't think it is right now.
Yeah,
I think the systems put it in, but they don't actually explain it in a way that actually makes sense.
because I feel like it'd give people more incentive to do events. Because like right now, like I see events, but there's
we're
not
too high level.
Yeah, a high level, but then it's also like there's maybe it's because like there are not many. They're not like not all of the events are available, and the nodes are limited and whatnot. But it's like even when I was lower level, there were didn't feel like there was any real incentive for me to participate in the reward beyond just like glint farming. And now it's like if I'm getting the same amount of glint from what is it, Minotaur, like the altar place up there at Minotaurs, I could just AFK up there and chill. Yeah, Titan's Ring, I could just chill up there, run around and be like I'm killing mobs and hang out and watch my shows, or just like. Especially if you wanted a safe place, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think the developers have had a knee-jerk response to nerf anything overpowered, and I think it's a horrible approach. I think people will inevitably find overpowered things, and if you make a habit of just nerfing everything in sight, the game will be unenjoyable.
Yeah,
I think that they need to start learning how to say, oh, this area is meta. Let's introduce a new meta, and then we'll just do, maybe we won't even announce it, but we'll drop this old meta by 2% so that we don't have to raise the bar too high every time, and then people will, dynamically enjoy different content without them destroying their world by nerfing everything. Like, it's a really bad move over a long period of time to continue to nerf shit, because you just take the joy out of everything. You'll lose a lot of people.
Well, the game is advertised to be event based, and if you nerf events, then no one's going to do the events, which then defeats the purpose of the game. So it's like, why would I participate in in my opinion, the events should offer the most experience out of the entire game. And I should be grinding in zone. Like, yeah, I know there's open world zones and everything like that, but I feel like, in my opinion, it should be that the zones should give me the most experience. I should be wanting to do the events, and I should be doing dungeons and grinding in areas to get gear so that I can participate in more and more events. Because
every event that pops up should be a immediate squirrel kind of reaction of like, I need to go do that right now because that's the most worthwhile thing. Make zones good, but there needs to be events in every zone, and those events need to scale all the way up to max level. All the time. And just to put a barrier of entry, because I think the problem they're having with the AFK is you could just as a level 1 sit in a level 20 event and just level up way too fast, but they already have barriers to make it so that when you kill a high level mob, you don't get XP. So make the event a mob. Just basically have an invisible boss of a certain level die to give the players their XP. And then you've already got the system in place to just be like, okay, we're only going to trigger XP for the people that are appropriate level for the event. And you solve all those problems. But right now, no matter what level you are, you can go and get XP from an event.
Well, it doesn't even need to be a boss. They just need to apply.
I was just saying, for ease of access in the programming side, they already have the framework to make it so that you only get XP for a mob that's within a certain level of you. Basically, they drop that script over to events instead of recreating a whole new thing and complicating it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That they just need to, because aren't the events already leveled?
Titan's Ring is level 7.
Yeah.
But there's problem is there's no higher level events, so people like just use events to get to level 10 and then ignore them. But it's like
Yeah.
these should be everywhere.
Yeah.
And they should, I mean, events are fun too. You know, people are rushing to get their glint and all that kind of stuff.
There should be a event in the ruins of Seth and Steel Bloom, like all the grinding area, all the areas, so that way when we're all grind, because you want players to interact. Right now, the only thing we do is like, oh, there's like I just got to 20, and
Yeah.
the most I did was sit in LFG and go from grind spot to grind spot to grind spot, and now it's
Yep.
like, well, I could go do caravans or do professions. That's my end game now. Or hit 25 and do dungeons and see what that's about. Like I do want to hit 25.
Dungeons are fun. Dungeons are fun. I
Yeah,
did some
yeah.
Forge, the new the Dwarven Forge. What is it called? Forgotten Forge, Begotten Forge. I don't know. There's no light up in the screen that says you're there, which is another thing that should be in the game. But yeah, no, the Forge was awesome. I'm probably going to be overlaying this discussion with a bunch of the drops that I got from the Forge because I was crazy lucky. I was really lucky. I got some fire gear, some stuff that like does fire damage and reduces fire damage, and yeah, it's fun to swing and see all the extra numbers pop up. So
Okay.
But yeah, they need events for every level. And like one of the ones that I would really like to see, because we have ones that are there's a really cool one in Miralith. Yeah, I think it's Miralith. It's either Miralith or Winstead.
This is where Titan's Ring is.
It's near Titan's Ring. It's the spider one.
Oh yeah.
Is really well designed because basically you trigger that event by chopping trees down in the area, and it alerts mobs and they come out of the brush, right? And then you trigger an event and spiders come out, and then a spider boss comes out, and you know it gives less XP than the Titan's Ring one, but it's still cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think that something that they need to, and I know it's a whole other thing of development they would need to do, but anytime you have a named boss, it took you a while to put that named boss and put their mechanics in and all that kind of stuff, their loot tables. You should have just introduced an event that makes it so that boss doesn't just spawn, it spawns off of conditions.
Yeah.
And those conditions are you killed X amount of mobs in Cephalon, right? And then Curse Fang shows up. Curse Fang is a dog boss in Cephalon. And basically, it says, maybe it's timed based. Maybe it's like, okay, it's nightfall, right? It's hit 12 o'clock in game. The sun is gone, right? You can kill X amount of mobs in the entirety of Cephalon, and the entire people in Cephalon are all participating. Anyone in Cephalon killing mobs. If you hit a certain amount, basically, if Cephalon is getting grinded hard enough, then Curse Fang spawns. Now, Curse Fang's a bad idea for that boss because his gear it's not good enough for an event of that scale. It would need to be better than that for something that takes, it takes an entire day. But, it would be cool to see that kind of interaction, and people would remember the boss. Because I say Curse Fang, you probably never fought Curse Fang,
I've seen him.
Like you were grinding Curse Fang before. You tried to do what?
I think we got in a group. We tried to fight him, but our tank died. We ran away. So.
Oh my god.
So no, I think it was.
That's the difference of levels, right? Now I think I didn't solo Curse Fang. I fought him with a bard. But as long as you purge his, I don't want to get off into the details of that. As long as you purge his stuff, he's fine. He just makes it so that you bleed too much. So.
Yeah, I think something like that would work. Like, say they did Curse Fang, because I think it would be good to do it in steps. Like, say they had you grind so much, and you grind so many say the wolves outside, because they're gonna like they have like a I guess a tier of mobs, right? So say you have some of the lower player mobs killing wolves and taming wolves outside, and they say they do so X Then Curse Fang is now mad. He's roaming around, and then people can subjugate Curse Fang, and then say the Aberrant. So they kill so much of like the ghosts
Yeah.
or something like that. Then he spawns and he's wandering around, and then they can keep. So it'd be cool to see like a series of bosses killed that then lead up to the Omega boss. And
Is the Aberrant a boss? I thought he was just a mob.
he's a 3-star mob.
Okay. I didn't think he had any special loot or anything. He should though. He's
Yeah,
cool.
I was just saying. I was
He
just using
should.
him as an example because I know that he walks around and people, if he catches people off guard and then wipes them.
Yep.
So I just
Yep.
think something like that would be cool, like because it would give us more of a purpose to grind, and that may be something that is introduced as development progresses. We may just be they may just have some of the mobs just spawned because they don't have the infrastructure worked out for the event to work properly. But you would think that would be something that they would want to try to test this early on, especially since these zones are out.
Okay, there's another event that I'd love to see. Not to get too far into something we were already talking about, but it shouldn't all be combat events. Artisanship is a huge part of the game, and I think they need to have a forge assembly where there is basically a town or one of the nodes will have a announcement server wide that they're having a forge assembly, which is basically come and craft your gear here. And basically we will rank that gear that you craft and we'll give it a rating, and then we'll basically give rewards out to people in the top 10 or top 20 or whatever. Or maybe it's top 100 if we have a huge server and it just goes all the way down in scaling rewards. Because I've seen those. I've seen this thing called similar. I think it might even be called the same thing in a mobile game that I play, and it is a blast. It is something that people are aware of and they hold on to their mats for because they're like, I'm gonna save my epic mats for when the forge assembly comes up, because it's a huge deal. The rewards are huge, and it should give more than XP. Especially if it's an artisan thing, it should be giving. I mean, should be giving mats back, like some of the a way to, I don't know, quadruple the mats you put in if you're first place, right? Something on that line, or maybe it's 10 times for something on if it's a huge scale thing. If it has hundreds of players, and you made one legendary item, getting back enough mats to maybe not make them because they're the wrong mats, but getting 5 random or 10 times the quantity of random mats for something else is like, it's pretty nice,
I think events like that would be cool. I do like how they have like gathering events. I do see some of those.
Yep.
I
I haven't done one yet.
haven't either. I kind of like
I didn't
those.
see anybody in there. They're just like,
Well, they're so large.
They're huge. Yeah, you probably wouldn't notice if there was people also doing it at the same time as you.
Yeah, because like there's a fishing derby, you wouldn't see that. But I kind of like
I
events
need to
like
do that.
that.
I need to find out what that's about.
I think
Have you done it yet?
I haven't done it. I haven't done them. I just saw a few, and then I noticed that there are guild events that can be created. Like there was I don't know. I was walking around one day, and there was like a fishing derby between us and another guild or something, and I was like, "What is this?"
No, I think it was that's just
Or is that a guild name?
the marker they put on it is not guild. It's not your guild because I got the same notification when I was guildless. So pretty sure it's not supposed to say. It says your guild master is doing a fishing event. I didn't have a guild, so I was like, no, you're wrong. He's not.
I guess it's buggy, but I like
Yeah.
events like that just because it reminds me in like Black Desert Online, they used to have a fishing event in certain locations. It wouldn't be like it's a dev event that they push, but people would save up a fishing rod that you get, and it allowed you to get better fish, and you couldn't repair it or anything like that. So people would use it and get a whole bunch of fish every time it would go around, and it sold for a lot of you. got the fishing rod. So it was pretty cool. I like stuff like that.
Yeah. Also, I like them paying events back in something other than XP, because in an MMO, late game, events that only give XP are not worth doing at a certain level. Whereas if they give you mats, those events are going to be usable even at max level. Their end game content, their early game content, anyone can do them. Giving mats for events, especially if it is absolutely worth it comparatively to just doing your own thing, extending a duration, maybe it only happens once a week, right? A real life week. And there's the Monday fishing derby, right? If that shows up and you could get the same amount of mats that you would normally have to fish nonstop for like a day or two, then even high level players are going to be competing. But in terms of artisanship, higher level players aren't that much over an edge over a player who just ground did artisanship, or they might even be below them. So like they're not guaranteed to win just because they're high level, and that makes it so all of the community can participate, not just the high level guys.
That'd be pretty fun.
I would love to see more artisan events.
They'll probably come out with more as the game progresses, but one thing I would like to see, it's something that Throne and Liberty had. I know it's a quality of life feature, and it probably isn't on there, up this close on the roadmap. But if we had some sort of widget that showed us what world map, what events were going on either the world map or on the mini map, because Throne and Liberty has that for their game, and it lets you know when the event is going to spawn, so that way you can kind of schedule around that time. You know what I'm saying? Like you can have it set an alert when this notification. I think that would be helpful.
I just
Especially,
hope they don't have like big pop-ups in when you log into the game. I hate that in games. I hate that in MMOs where like you logged in, here's all the news. Dude, I should be able to disable. I'm not going to check news unless I want to check news. It should not be a prompt that shows up at the beginning of the game.
yeah, I don't
I
want them to
hated
do
that in
that.
every game. I was like, I don't want to close out of things because I had it in Terra. I had to think that in the Final Fantasy as well, and I was just like, just close it. Don't. My immediate reaction is just close it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I'm
So I
not.
don't think they should have news on the opening screen. I mean, maybe the title screen, but not when you're in the game.
I'm not saying like when you log into the game. I'm saying like there's like a literal icon on the mini map that you can
Mhm.
click, and then it opens up a
Like
widget.
a calendar.
Yeah, and it's like this is
Yeah,
when the event is, or it's like it has a list of the events, and then like what time they're about to appear. So that way you can click on them and be like, oh, or you could just see, okay, this one's going to be up in an hour, or this one's going to be up in 2 minutes. That way you can pick and choose which events you're going to do and run to them. Or it also had like guild events. So like if you had a guild war, it showed you like where the guild event, or like node events and just different things like that. I think it'd be helpful to have a window that shows information on there, so players can know what events are available and have a little bit more I guess, like choice in what they do versus kind of right now.
oh, it's up. Let's go do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
drop everything. Yeah, no, there needs to be a schedule for that stuff, especially if it's like artisan things that are like I understand the events for like mobs. Oh, the boss appeared because you chopped this tree. That makes sense. But it's like, oh, an entire, like the one I gave as an example, the Forge Assembly one. That's something that should be announced like in game by NPCs. Uh, I mean, or just a widget. Like you're saying,
I mean,
several weeks in advance, or maybe a week in advance,
it
right?
could be
That just
both.
tells everybody. Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be cool if they had basically, there's a lot more development in the NPCs, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. Um,
I mean, not really.
Actually, maybe not. No, I mean, not necessarily. Yeah. I mean, you basically just have one of your placeholder NPCs, uh, because they have an NPC generator, right? Because it
Yeah.
has different appearances and all that kind of stuff. So they're printing NPCs at this point.
This has to check for the script and be like, if it's so many days to this date, say or if these conditions, say
Yep.
this thing, and then in a week
he shows up
you say
in this
thing.
town.
Yeah.
Shows up in this town as a quest giver. People see him. Now, if they were going to do that, they really need to fix their pop-ups for quests, because right now it's basically impossible to tell who has a quest. It's not impossible, but it's like it's really hard to notice who has a quest. Sometimes there's no question marker on an NPC that you're looking dead in the face. They've got some things to finish. It is, as they say, an alpha. Although I think I might be under a different impression now. We were talking a little about this earlier, and a friend of mine was talking about this. Whereas, as kind of a general overall view to kind of the first week and also the entirety of phase 1, I think I've come to the acceptance that this is not really an alpha. And that's not something you want to hear to me. It's something I can deal with because I'm still having fun. But to me, this isn't an alpha. This is an early access game. Because there's features that could be tested through stress testing, where they open it up for a day or a weekend or something like that, and go test one feature, get some input on it, move on, right? But they are pushing this kind of actual game, grind your way up through the levels, go craft the best gear, go do the events, go kill the bosses. That's early access kind of thing. That's not alpha stuff, right? We're not testing, and I know you could say that's just a more well-developed alpha, but no. If they wanted it to be an alpha, they would put an XP boost so that we could test out all the features that we wanted to test. They had done that briefly in a stress test right before the launch of phase 2, where they put it on for 3 days and they ran the test to see how the nodes level up and make sure there was no bugs and that kind of thing. That's what an alpha is supposed to be. If we're there just to test, we're not playing the game, right? And I know you're probably going to lose some testers because there's a lot of people here that think of this as a game. And part of me wants it to be a game. Part of me is like happy with it being an early access game right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to an alpha, because I get to play it, right? But the other part of me knows that that's not the kind of serious development that I would like. I think if they were more serious and taking it seriously as an alpha, the developers were, we would be getting farther faster, and a lot of the systems that we're not reaching in time would be reached if it was being approached as an actual alpha and not a early access. The timing, that could be a little bit of a hot take, because the timing of that is maybe a little bit inappropriate. We basically have been playing during the holidays, right? Like it's the end of this initial bracket is going to end in 2 days on the 6th, right? It's like the 4th today. And so basically they've been running on a skeleton crew. Development has not been their most, it hasn't been entirely focused during this time. They basically left it up for us to continue playing while everyone went on holiday, right?
Yeah, that is true.
So it's like, it's a little harsh to say all that stuff, but also we've noticed the difference between phase 1 and phase 2. Aside from some performance stuff, aside from the desert getting
Nerfed.
a little bit of nerfed consistently and also updated, because there's content in the desert. Not as much as there needs to be
Well, that's why
for
I
what they
said.
were saying.
That's why I said it was
But
nerfed, just because they said all this stuff was going to come out in the desert when Phase Two came here. We got nodes, but like as far as and nodes and some mobs, but a lot of the the foliage and all the fauna, all the I guess like actual environment that they said was going to be in the game. Like I know, no, everyone saw the Narc video. It was just a vast desert in some of the places. So like for
just
me,
dunes, but there wasn't even like dust in the dunes. It was just flat.
yeah,
Kind of, yeah, it was not very well put together.
basic. And I know
Yeah.
deserts are boring, but it's like I know we had what is it? We had seen some artwork and I guess a concept of a plan for the desert biome, but it
Yeah.
was just a little vertical slice, which
Well, they
I,
had shown people walking through snow and sand before where you didn't just leave footprints, you left trails. Like the tech for them, like um affecting the land you were walking on and all of the details, dust blowing around in the desert, all those kind of things were just like you're saying, a vertical slice. And I was like, man, this stuff was um hyped up more than it should. And I feel like it's frustrating because I didn't need any of those features, but the fact that you said that you had them is very frustrating. You
yeah,
know, like I can enjoy a game that isn't like perfect graphics or anything like that, but don't advertise it if you're not going to put it in. And maybe they will put it in later, but I don't know, maybe they won't. It's kind of like just don't advertise it, don't get people's hopes up on certain things if you're not going to develop it or not going to deliver it on the time you said you were going to deliver it. Um,
that's how I felt with the dynamic. Sorry to jump back, but that's what got me for the dynamic servers. I know they had stated a few times that it was going to be implemented. It wasn't, and performance has improved. It's just that I would have liked to test out the actual systems that they were going to have in place. It's kind of like the nodes. Because we're kind of talking about like the desert biome, the nodes. Let's talk about this a little bit real quick. They said the vassal system was something that we were going to see in phase 2, and I was under the impression that it'd be something that we would see in the beginning because they never said, because they were very clear about some of the things being later in phase 2 and what was going to be in the beginning, and they didn't never they how it seemed at the end of the November, I guess, showcase was that the vassal system was going to be ready. You know what I'm saying? It was going to be something that we'd be able to test since we were going to be leveling the nodes as the types they were in phase 2 instead of them all being the same type node type in, well, I believe they're supposed to be their actual node type this time. I could be wrong since I'm not a mayor and I've just been grinding for the last little bit.
Wait, node type meaning like the race you are in?
Well, like
Oh,
if
no, no,
there's a
no. I know what you're talking
religious,
about with the
military, so like
economic and the scientific nodes and the military nodes,
yeah.
right? The religious nodes. Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
not in.
yeah, so I was under the impression that was going to be in as well, but that doesn't seem to be the case either. It's just the deep node, same node type from phase 1, but we get to level them up still. We can test out building, buildings. We have a marketplace now, which is nice. I would have liked to see the vassal system, but it makes sense that we don't have it if they didn't add all the tropic nodes in, and that because that would affect the flow there. And if they're going to be, if since Fiona's left a little bit ago, but I know they were saying that they were going to add another node in the desert, and if they add that node in the desert and flesh that out in this next patch, I don't think we're going to see the vassal system until the end, closer to the end of phase 2, if not beginning of phase 3. And that kind of worries me because I know we have the rogue that is also supposed to come out. They said not in the beginning, but a few weeks after phase 2 began, and them choosing to
Well,
have
initially it
it.
was supposed to be start of phase 2.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the start, but then they said it's going to be a few weeks into phase 2, and that doesn't give me confidence now knowing that they only had a small group of people working on the game during the holiday. And if everyone was off during this holiday break and we're still waiting for the Rogue to get here, that means it won't be here until maybe February, March. You know what I'm saying? So we're
Yeah.
getting closer. It's already January. Phase 3 begins in May. That's only
Well,
that.
they said the Rogue, the last thing they said, and I mean, part of the problem with it is that they say it's going to be here, and then it's always a little bit later. If we're not still waiting on it, it's always a little bit later. But they said mid to late January for Rogue.
Well,
So
that's why I
let's
would.
hope.
Well, I'm trying to hope, but that's why I said it does. It makes me worry because they spent the last 3 weeks on break, and if the Rogue wasn't ready in the beginning of phase 2, I mean, depending on how much work there is, I know people were able to data mine the abilities, but depending on how much work there needs to be done on the Rogue, they're going to be coming back Monday, and then if it's 2 weeks into January, I don't know if they'll be like, if it wasn't ready, I don't know. I just don't think it. I feel like they're gonna have. It's gonna take them a while to get back into the swing of things because they're gonna be getting back on the 6th. So if everyone's been off, they've been chilling. They've been chilling. So they're not. They're not. They haven't been programming every day like they were up until then. So I feel like for some people, they're gonna have to figure out where they were, get back into the swing of things, talk about what they need to do with the Rogue, and implement it still. And they may be able to do that in 2 weeks. I hope so. But there's also all the bugs and issues that we found during this 3 weeks while they were gone. Like that, not all of that was fixed and addressed. They only had a few people on the site. So that's my worry about them saying it's going to be mid-January when there's going to be them fixing the issues that were found on holiday, because the people who were no lifing it because they had time were no lifing it because they had time. Like there's already people who are 25. Like they were 25 maybe the second day.
There's a ton of people. No, not the second day. You need a minimum of 70 hours
Okay,
in a perfect grind.
my bad. The third day, there were already people who were 25 the third day. So
Fourth, technically, it needs to be 72. Oh no, oh, you're right. Yeah. Third day, 2 hours before the end. If they did no sleeping,
yeah,
which there were.
there are people who are forcing it.
Crotchless in our group, he was on the first day for 62 hours. He didn't get off.
See now,
and then he took a 3-hour nap and he was back on again. So he was fast. But there's a limit. Like you can't, unless you have a group that is also doing that, you're not hitting 25, because those last few levels, in order for you to get the proper ideal XP, you need to have people doing the same thing that you're doing. And biologically, the chance of you actually lucking out and finding a group that can do that and not have to sleep, not have to take a break for food, it's not happening. So you need more than 70 hours to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just memeing, but you know what I'm saying. Like there are already people who are no lifing, sweating, and are up there.
I was up there, yeah. 34 hours was my limit though. That was it. All I could do.
But
it's still a lot. It's still a
lot.
I had sleep troubles afterwards. I've been catching up on sleep the last couple of days.
That's good.
Yeah.
But that's why I think Rogue, might be delayed again, and they're just not going to say anything, just because who knows what they're going to have to face when they come back. And do we talk about him? The man, the legend,
Narc?
the myth. Yes.
Yeah, probably should. That was unexpected. Because honestly, okay, we probably need to preface for anybody who isn't aware of that drama. Narc probably the main or one of the main Ashes of Creation content creators. At the very least, his audience is almost entirely Ashes of Creation. And he got his audience through Ashes of Creation. There's a lot of big people that are playing Ashes of Creation that are bigger than Narc, but they didn't just do Ashes of Creation.
Yeah.
So he's the biggest Ashes. He was the biggest Ashes of Creation person, probably.
At least to me, I didn't really watch.
He was. I honestly think he was. He was the only one that was like, I shouldn't say he was the only one getting replies from Steven and all that, because he definitely wasn't. But an entertainer at the very least.
Very entertaining.
I liked his content. I probably am not gonna be following his stuff nowadays. I might pop in now and then, but it's essentially the drama went down with. Well, no, actually, you've been following his stuff a little bit better. Why don't you give the rundown of the drama there?
I guess from an observer, someone who watching out the window, looking in, seeing the drama, the fighting. From what I've seen, it was kind of like there were, and Narc explains this in his own video that he had a unique style. He felt that some of the content that he was producing, took away from it. Some people were saying that, he was taking it too serious, this, that, and the other. But what I think was maybe the tipping point was that Narc had made a few videos kind of questioning the methods of Intrepid as far as like payment, as well as not just payment, but like funding the game through the alpha keys, because what we're doing is funding the game, funding the development through these alpha keys by paying hundreds of dollars. Some of us paid upwards to $300 to get in, to now you can pay $100, when they said that they were going to close it and that was it, but I guess start from the beginning. He had made a video talking about how kind of questioning their methods in the payment and funding, especially around them closing the initial alpha. Then later on, right a few months before phase 1 starts, they release the date. They open it back up at a cheaper price, saying like, "Oh, JK, they didn't close. Like that wasn't the end. You can still get in now," which a lot of people figured they were going to do that. I kind of felt that they were trying to give us the impression that they weren't going, saying that they weren't going to do that they were going to say, hey, whoever bought it, because it was FOMO. Let's be for real and call it what it is. It was, they did some FOMO. They said, we're closing these packs, it's over. And we won't know if we're going to do it, open up more, but if we do, this, that, and the other. And then here we go, a few months before in, you can get a pack that is just like a Alpha Pass Lite, and you get maybe a cheaper version of the tier 2, the original tier 2 packs. They pretty much just reworked the original packs, and he didn't like that. And then I believe when the game actually came out, he had pointed out that a lot of the things that they had said were, like, we had kind of spoke about it here in our video, but a lot of the things that they said were going to be available, or that that they had finished, were ready to go, is going to be in the game. And then here we are when the game starts and they're kind of not in the game, and that kind of that gives you a bad taste in your mouth. When you're telling me that, oh, we're going to have dynamic servers, we're going to have a full desert, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. And when we get in the game, we have, like, I understand it's an alpha, but it's still a buggy mess. You know what I'm saying? Like, people can't get into the game, we're having issues. And it came to the end when I believe there was a Reddit post made. I can try to find it, but it kind of went into detail talking about how some of these features, like they were just vertical slices of of those, like of the desert biome and whatnot, and Narc, I
And
guess,
not in the game.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
not in the game and they don't exist. They just don't exist because they're a vertical slice. And for me, that reminds me of Ubisoft's quadruple A game where they charge people like 70, 80 bucks, something like that, to play their game, pirate game. They had in development for 8 years, but in reality, they had shifted the development between like three, four different game studios, and only and those studios were creating again vertical slices of what they had hoped the game to be and look like in order to to gain interest from customers and fans as well as investors, so to me that's a little
That's shameful.
yeah, not shameful, but it's misleading, like when you're trying to
Oh,
say
it's
that you're
lying. That's what
yeah
it is. Like it's like those phone ads for different games that show games that are not they don't exist.
yeah
Um, and honestly, my opinion is that you should not be able to advertise something that doesn't exist. Um, like it's just wrong. I know we're like probably not going to stand on a moral standpoint of that, but you shouldn't be showing stuff that doesn't exist. Like you can't do full like in fast food. You're not allowed to make CGI fast food in the US. You actually have to film your food in slow motion and, splice it together that way. You cannot show anything that is not um, real life when you're making fast food. And they need to have that kind of, I mean, that's an extreme like version of it. That even if it was CGI, it still exists, right? But yet you can make things that don't exist and make ads for them for games for something that isn't, like most burgers that you would get is like, I don't know, 15 bucks or less, right? Unless it's really nice. But where you're gonna buy a game for like 50 or 70 bucks and it's not even the game you want, it's false advertising. It's wrong. You
yeah
know?
And another thing that I want to point out in the situation was that because I went to kind of check it out a little bit, but a lot of like the first video he posted, it it came across as Steven somewhat questioning Narc's mental health in a
Yep.
sense, which one I don't believe he should do, which I think is kind of wrong, especially since Narc was being critical of the game, and then Steven's like, well, maybe you should take a break. It's not your mental health might be, so you might be kind of, to me, that's kind of gaslighting in a sense,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And to me, with Steven being in more of a position, like authority position, because like, he's like the creator of the game, and people kind of people watch Narc, but they are going to respect what Steven says just because he's the one developing the game. And I think that kind of, that kind of makes it a little shifty in a sense, because regardless of what Narc does or says, people are going to then question in that lens of, well, maybe Narc is being too skeptical. Maybe he does. Maybe he is unwell for watching it, because his whole thing is like he's like, because his whole persona is like, I'm an overly addicted video gamer, this, that, and the other. So it's just
Yeah.
like,
His alias or moniker he gives himself is the dented one. I'm like, you don't get he is giving the impression that he is insane to people. Like he doesn't, well, not insane, but like a degenerate, right? He's not
yeah,
doing well. He's not well, right? He gives that impression, but it's a joke, right? And for Steven to go out and actually like question his um his mental state and all that kind of stuff is out of line. Um Also, I don't know if Steven actually watches Narc's full videos because Narc starts off with clickbait stuff of
Yeah.
this game's a scam. It's horrible. This is all bad. And then by the end of the video, he leads you into this is actually really good. Like he's hyping it up, singing praises, right? By the end. So I don't think they would have had such a negative relationship. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know Steven or how well he gets, how annoyed easily he gets, but like at the end, he's singing the game's praises. And dude, the guy wears underwear with Steven's face on it. I mean, he obviously is. It's like I wouldn't want that for me personally. So I understand why he's got a little bit of beef, but I don't think he watches the videos all the way through. Honestly, I think that's part
Yeah.
of the problem.
Because I mean, it's like for me, regardless of what Narc, like even if Narc is playing the game too much, it's like you can tell him, yeah, maybe you should take a break, but at the same time, it's like you also just don't have to respond. Like you also don't have to respond if you don't like what he is saying. Like he's just one of the infinite content creators that watch your like that are about your content or want to play your game, and it's like I don't know. I just feel like it probably could have been handled better on both sides, but it's like I'm kind of sad to see Narc leave just because one, he was one of the first individuals who I watched to get an interest in the game itself. So like I wouldn't be playing Ashes of Creation if I didn't see Narc, talk about it or play it because I found him through Asmin and he watched like something about him and then I started watching more. I was like, what is this Ashes of Creation? You know what I'm saying? And then I started looking more into it and then boom, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get this game and this guy's hilarious. So it's like it sucks that he's leaving. I think some of his criticisms for the game are valid, especially as someone who like I've been into early accesses, open betas, closed betas, and MMOs since I was like 12, 13 years old. You know what I'm saying? And there have been an infinite amount of studios where they've made the same promises and said the same things are going to be in the game, and they never are in the game. They keep lying, and it's like, just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. So when someone calls you out that you said that this is ready and going to be in the game, it's like
you don't question their mental health at that point.
Yeah.
Like,
even if you are just saying, even if you're like saying, oh, maybe you just need to take a break, you're taking this too serious, it's like, even if he is taking it too serious, you're kind of dodging the criticism when they're like, why is this not going on? It's like, even if you're not intending to question their mental health and you're not trying to insinuate anything, it's like you are dodging the question and you're kind of dodging accountability for why this isn't going on when you said it was going to happen. Like we understand that this is an alpha and this is a beta, but the thing is, if it's an alpha and a beta, the best thing I would do to make sure people understand that things are going to be broken or are broken is that, like, one, don't release anything until you know it needs to be released. I think we had this conversation before. It's like, if
and don't tease releases for things aren't necessarily going to be like.
Yeah,
I would love for them to make sure they put every class in the game before launch, but I would understand if they didn't. If they only said we want this to be a Trinity system, so we're gonna have 3 classes starting off, and we're gonna have 4 classes: 1 melee DPS, 1 range DPS, or 1 magic DPS. And then we've got cleric and tank, right? If that's all they decided to do before launch, but I knew they were actually developing this stuff, that'd be fine. But when they're doing an alpha and it almost seems like they're not finished with the stuff by the time that they're about to launch it and they're announcing it, it's like, are you working? I mean, I know you're working on this now, but it's been a long time. How far have you got on this class? Like, we're talking systems, right? That, like, I know the dynamic meshing and all that kind of stuff is like a real thing. And quests take up so much development time because you gotta generate all those and you gotta generate NPCs for them. It's probably the biggest thing in an MMO, and it's gonna keep getting bigger as you add quests, as you add updates to the game. That is huge, right?
Yeah,
But their systems, I mean, a lot of their systems that aren't finished yet at this point in the years feel like they should be.
yeah.
Like,
I'm feel like we're gonna be waiting for this game to come out for like years. It's not gonna come out for like another like 2, 3, 4 years, because it's like you said. I mean, again, I understand it's an alpha, because in alpha, everything's supposed to be buggy and not work. But it's like,
they should still have the systems there.
yeah, they should have the. I feel like they should have the core there. They should have like
Yeah.
the core.
Having
Like,
placeholder in the artisan things, like placeholder for farming, is like, why? I mean,
I would rather there be no crafting, and I would rather there be nothing at all for like like instead of there being a placeholder. I'd rather there be nothing at all until it gets finished, instead of like
yeah.
either you have the bare minimum of it needed, like the marketplace. Like I like I like the marketplace. It'd be better if it was just an auction house, which
Oh
would,
god, yes.
but you know what I'm saying? It would
Yeah.
be better if it was an auction house, so that way they could use that auction house system for their individual markets and for player stores. You know what I'm saying? Where,
Yeah.
because like you have to,
I do see some perks to their system, and I hope they have an auction house and this system. That's a hot take, but like I have noticed that if your name if you have a named shop, people recognize you, and if you are well known in the community, people will look you up when they're trying to buy shit. So like if you're like a really high end crafter, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to look for this item," people are like, "Oh, I know he makes the best stuff because he's level 30. He's level 30 in crafting of this thing. He's maxed out this crafting recipe, and he's got the highest XP. I know he has all the gear for crafting, so there's a good chance he's going to have the highest rolls on his legendary gear." And that's not something we see yet. It's too early in phase 2 to see legendary gear in the stalls, but it will happen. It'll happen.
yeah.
And when you know somebody on the server is level 30 in their stuff, their journeyman, maxed out journeyman. I don't think there's a promotion higher right now. Um, People are going to be buying from them. And it's nice to be able to look up their name. And I've even bumped into people out in the wilderness, and they're like, "Hey, you're mining right now. Have you found any zinc?" I'm like, "I'm not going to tell you if I have zinc on me because I don't want you PvPing and killing me out here." So I'm saying no, but I'll probably sell some later in New Ayla or whatever. So check my name out. And they do, and it's gone. By the time I post it, it's gone right away. So
Okay.
I see perks to the system, but they need an auction house real bad.
I don't mind how it is. I was just saying that I just think that it would be like it's easier to scale up. Like I feel like they are having a trouble building things in a way that allow them to scale easily, and I think that comes from potentially them having a younger team, because Fiona made the point earlier that they're not like making their programs modular enough, so that way when they switch one thing that it doesn't break another, because we do see that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
I think part of what they're doing with this system is they are being anti-player, anti-sweaty player, more accurately.
yeah.
They believe that the end of their game is max level being reached and there not being enough content. So they want to slow down their players as much as possible. But we've already seen that in the first week we can hit 25. So they need to stop trying to do that. They need to start providing more content for higher level players.
And I think we're going to see that
They
with
really
phase
need to
two.
stop that. Yeah.
But I think we're going to
Well,
see more
I mean,
content in
if
phase
they
two.
learn that, they need to learn that first, because they're doing a lot of things that is like, you know, slap on the wrist if you do it. Not even like cheating stuff, but like there's a lot, like I was saying, a punishment culture, not a rewarding culture. There's nothing where it's like, you hit 25. Now let's give you a ton of stuff to do, right? There's exceptions to that. There's Carafin, there's the Dwarven Forge. There's Steel Bloom, because Steel Bloom has really good gear at level 20 still too. But so there's stuff to do at 20, right? But once you get the gear sets from each of those places, I mean, you turn to artisans, you turn to gold making, you start collecting mounts.
And that's
When
every in-game.
You've done that. What else is out there?
PvP.
You know,
But that's in-game though.
there's PvP.
Collecting
PvP,
mounts and gear.
Yeah, but that's not everything in all the other games. We have raids. We have bosses that are they're scalable difficulty, right? You know, I don't know if everybody liked the Mythic plus dungeons or whatever, where you could put affixes on bosses and buff them for greater rewards, but I did. I thought it was a great system. You know, like give the higher level player, don't just be like, we're gonna release an expansion, shit on all your legendary gear so your next green is better. That's horrible. That's horrible. They just need to provide more content for the same level, right? And it doesn't need to be necessarily better, infinitely better. Don't ruin the meta of the old stuff, but it needs to be different. And they've done that well with two of their open dungeons. Yeah, Carafin and the Dwarven Forge are both well designed in that matter. Carafin drops gear that is necrotic resist and lifesteal, right? Dwarven Forge has gear that is fire resist and fire damage. So you might actually have equal gear in both places, but they're different builds, which is how endgame should be, because then you can go collect your set from over here, and then once you've got your set, you keep farming it until you get the recipes, and then you craft gear like that, or you hire somebody to craft gear like that.
True.
So there's so much playability in the game right now, and I think people leave before they've actually, scooped the bottom of the barrel. Final thoughts. I think if you're thinking of picking the game up, because this is kind of where we're at, and I know this isn't something we discussed a ton, so I don't want to get into it too far, but this game is a community game, and it will be, we had Fiona come in and talk about how he plays with people, and that's kind of where he finds his enjoyment, no matter what kind of content he's doing. When you get in the game, find people you like to play with and have your fun that way. Probably don't rush into any of the not high octane, high difficulty stuff unless your group likes doing that stuff. Don't outlevel your group, play with your people, right? Because in the end, it's a community game, and you're going to have most fun with the people you're around. If that means make a guild, if that means find a big guild to make sure you always have a group, world's your oyster. But the game is actually still very fun. There's a lot of stuff we're shit talking on here, but the game is actually still very fun. It has a lot to do. There's a big community. Not everyone in the game is very mature. I would say if you're like us, stay away from very, very sweaty PvPers. That's what I'd advise. Unless you like doing that stuff too. So just find your crowd as quickly as possible and try to stay in their level range so that you're able to enjoy content with your friends. You'll have a lot of fun. I think the game's still an awesome choice, but I think the expectation that it's a alpha, it is whatever they call it technically, but I think it's incorrect. I think it is a early access game right now. Thoughts?
I agree. I think this is more it even though it's advertised as early access, this could easily be a not early access in alpha 2. It easily could be an early access game since they're like the test windows are so long and progress isn't wiped and they're not really testing anything in particular. They're just relying on us playing it to play the game and report whatever we find. And I also agree that find your group, either start a guild, join one of the server discords, talk to people in there, hang out with people in there. Solo, you can still play solo, but you might have a
Yeah,
better time playing with
if you're
friends
gonna,
in a group just because you're going to get better experience.
yeah,
You won't be locked out of areas because this game is still early on, so the amount of content that you would need to be able to play solo just isn't there. You're gonna have a lot harder time, but if that is something that you're into, you could always do that. I'm still having fun. It's just that there are a lot of things that I would like to see done in this game, so that way, it comes out as we, think it should be. But who knows? And I guess they should know better. But hey, this is my take
yeah.
on the state of Ash's creation so far.
If you're gonna play solo, watch our class tier list.
Oh
We'll put a
yeah,
link.
yeah,
Yeah, because that one will help you pick a class that can do solo stuff as well.
yeah. Like and subscribe and follow and all that jazz. I'm out.
No shot.